This video contains spoilers. Barotrauma was developed by Undertow Games and Fake Fish Games, and could be considered a Finnish terrorist attack on at least 2.1 million people, that, regardless of right or not, I will define as a second-person, roguelike, Metroidvania, horror type of game. And as a preface, it could be said the multiplayer is the intended way to play this game. Alternatively, the single player offers the same experience with an edge on insanity-inducing nuisances. I, for instance, decided at some goddamn moment to complete the entire solo campaign before playing online. And after playing the game, I can say with satisfaction and confidence that I'm a worse person. So let us be started in this nerve-wracking, traumatizing, paralyzing, idiotizing game that is Barotrauma. You can create your preferred combination of unique characters, consisting of an electrical engineer, a mechanical engineer, and a captain. I personally went for the war criminals aggravation, and of course you will be able to choose your coffin. Submarine, I meant Submarine, where you will spend the rest of your life as a conscious entity. Worry not about the details, since whatever you choose will not survive after the first area. I realized this not because I played the tutorial, but because after mindlessly rushing through the first area, I repeatedly, persistently, and unceasingly died in the first mission of the second area, to the point where I thought I suffered from the rare illness that tends to affect some game journalists. But after realizing that the submarines were a part of the progression, and you could not play the entire game in the first submarine, I gave myself another chance. On this timeline, human beings have achieved the technological advancements to establish a colony in the sixth moon of Jupiter, Europa, and as it is usual, we must establish dominance by destroying the local fauna. However, you must show no sympathy, for there is nothing but freakish horrors in this godforsaken place that will make even the most notorious war criminals of Europe, the moon and the other, look like the victims. What the fuck is this? Oh fuck that. Also on this timeline, Obama, Bin Laden, Stalin and Oppenheimer, after getting tired of their 7-Eleven jobs, have just booked a new submarine to begin their business as DoorDash delivery drivers. They will commence their adventure by contacting with this Colombian contractor to transport a mysterious white substance to the next station, which has been assigned to you because their submarines have lately been causing their career contractors severe cases of barotrauma. For ironical purposes, Stalin will drive the submarine, Obama Bin Laden will manage the nuclear reactor, and Oppenheimer will be the chores guy, because there was nothing else he could do. But not everything is happiness and joy here in the depths of Europa, if there is any of it. The first mission may astound you with the melodramatic loneliness that humans experience while navigating a medium that was not originally intended to hold life in it. But believe me, for every mission after it, you will wish that it stayed that way. Here's a fucking beast already. Let's fucking go, man. I'm waiting to die crushed by this fucking submarine. At this point, you may have already figured out the concept of this game. On the surface, you arrive to an outpost, you ask for contracts, stock your supplies, among other things. Then you select your next destination and navigate towards it. However, as it is expected from a species capable of discourse and reasoning, in Europe, the moon, every outpost can be ruled by one of the two main extremist factions, Amazon and Wish.com, who will not like you simping for the other faction, progressively showing more and more indignation towards you in the case you do, to the point they won't just ill-willingly check your pockets every time they see you, but will treat you in the same way the Texas Border Patrol that has been heartbroken by his 9 out of 10 Latina ex treats the Mexican near the border. But since I did not want to become the enemy of a faction, mainly because they will be more lethal than a Chinese working site, I ended up simping for the both of them. What is in between these not precisely friendly bastards is even less friendly of a thing. Some like to call it European Ocean, but I like to call it hell, where you can enjoy of many thrilling, fun, and comforting activities such as becoming a mud raptor meal, catching parasitic aids, other parasitic aids, the submarine type, or maybe you fancy an appointment with the headbutting pricks, or the bigger headbutting prick. Maybe he brings his family with him. Holy shit. And may God forgive us from the exo-submarine expeditions. Barotrauma is mistakenly not classified as a horror game, but fear is all you will feel while looking at the screen. Yeah, like the fear I feel before committing robbery, the suspense, the uncertainty will always torment more than the actual horrors. Will I be eaten by a mud raptor, or will it be a latcher that drags me to the bottom of this goddamn cursed place? Will I be caught stealing a welding tool? Will I be beaten down by immortal guards? That uncertainty will consume the mind of the weak and restrict them from achieving greatness. That's why I always suggest, if you want to succeed, start a submarine and throw yourself at whatever that comes, and arm yourself with god courage to steal everything you can. The the key of success is yours now. On your journey through hell, you will be worried with various tasks, which unless you're a 12-arm having freak, you won't be able to complete alone. That's why you hire slave workers. You see, we have a special contract, through which they are paid once in exchange for their eternal service. Well, that's what my contract says, and I have chosen to not further elaborate. And however it may look like a scam for the bots, the one that's being scammed is actually you. That is because, as Napoleon used to say, there is no worse enemy than a maggot ally, or something like that. The point is that the intelligence in the artificial intelligence of these bots is subjective. Why are you shooting that? And they seem to have been deliberately coded so that it feels as if they were all Sleepy Joe's clones. They can only handle 3 tasks, very inefficiently if I may add. Although, depending on their personality, they will either reject certain tasks or do whatever they want to do in addition to the 3 tasks assigned to them, which is more often than not a fucking nuisance. Where the fuck is your puck? Yeah, they're just like a horde of retards. They're also, in every way possible, unfathomably daft. You have the diving suite there, you fucking maggot. And the only thing that saves them is the fact that you can switch and play as them. However, unless you are that 12-arm having freak, you are most likely going to need them. There are different types of dogs, and each has its own talent tree, which you level up by getting XP from Daddy Amazon and Uncle Wish. These talents can make them become somewhat of an useful entity, thus helping them atone for their special condition. There are 2 rows of general talents and 3 specialized trees for each class. And for the first 2 rows, you can choose whatever you want, which is a way to say that you can choose to fail. So heed my advice, I have already gone through it. Choose whatever gives extra XP. Why? Because it's way better to have a really bad finished build than an unfinished one. This is due to the best talents of every class being in the final row of specialized trees. And if you take in account that you can only progress in 1 tree at a time, and to unlock every row you need to unlock at least 1 talent of the previous one, it is pretty clear that the more XP, the more jacked up you'll be. The more you grind, the better your talents will be. Very much like not in real life, and they can go from running a little faster to petting dot raptors and becoming god. Each character improves its capability of performing a task based on how much it does it. That's why my medics are also security officers and mechanics. Well, these motherfuckers ain't cheap for what they are, so you sometimes have to do with what you have, and sometimes that is the most useless maggot. Oh, this guy is completely useless. The electrical engineer. The only thing the electrical engineer does is put the fuel rods in the reactor and then watch them waste away, taking in consideration that without that reactor nothing in the submarine works. Well, one would think that this motherfucker that has nothing but this task to do would do it right. Wrong. I don't know about you, but I always have thought power outages are quite an annoying thing to happen. That was until I was being raided by a horde of aliens because of it. Now I can't help but find them to be a life-threatening situation. And what's the most common cause of power outages? That will be the electrical engineer, given they have the unnerving habit of waiting until the rod has been completely depleted, to then replace it, at which point the power has gone completely out on the entire submarine, effectively turning it into a munching boy. The mechanical engineer fixes shit and makes for a good miner. However, due to the natural hazards of the environment, I usually go out with the security officer, also makes this badass suite. However, it seems to be always incapable of fixing this seemingly irrelevant upper vent. However, due to its directional position, it tends to flood fucking everything. It's also known as one of the main causes for European crews' barotrauma. The medic. Once you start advancing in the game, you will notice that your non-profit collaborators will begin to disappear. That might be because you lack a medic, so your dogs may be dying. Feel free to buy a cheap medic in the station of your preferred faction. Of course, if you mind the lives of your maggots, which I do personally, not because I like them, incompetent pieces of shit, but because 1, they cost money, and money there is not to spare, and 2, you level them up, spending hours of your miserable yet valuable life doing missions. If they die, you will have to spend more money on a new bastard who is 2 or 3 times as useless. The gunner. The gunners are the front line, the enforcers of the human law into the alien lives, and humans as well sometimes, and depending on how much they fuck up, the gameplay will quickly turn from defense mode into that. in which case they will be the ones to defend the rest of the morons. However, as you may have already noticed, there is friendly fire in this bitch. I am shooting an alien, I am shooting an assistant, I don't know, but I am shooting something. So once the aliens get in, the mood will rapidly turn into insanity. Especially in the early game, this will happen a lot. And once this happens, you might as well consider a couple of your maggots dead. If navigating the oceans of Europa is a mental and body hazard to one's integrity, getting out of the submarine could be considered a death sentence. That, putting it simply, only a freak will survive, and for the single player, those are the gunners. However, you may as well consider taking treatment for space herpes and some opioids with you, because you are about to become a munching treat for the local dogs. I also like to take the occasional performance booster, which has led to my security officer's sex-threatening appearance. The assistant, they can either become any class, a clown, or nothing. That's it. The captain is the driver, the one who maneuvers, who drifts, who speeds. And question of the day, would you let the retard-looking monkey that you just kidnapped from the zoo drive you home? If the answer is not obvious for you, or if it is yes obviously, because who wouldn't, that means you, like me, will most likely end up in this situation. That is because they use the autopilot, and the autopilot is ass. It is said you can avoid some fights using it with no radar, but after testing it, I can say that is bullshit. The fights still happen, you just don't know from where and when they will happen. So it was while I was using it when I got most of the footage of that situation. Now I know I've been mentioning 2 factions, but in reality there are 4 extremist factions, if we count the Fen Clowns and the 8 Skull, who hate themselves respectively. The lore of this moon accounts for many more than what a casual driver will be able to grasp along their delivery drive journey to kill God. This much lore is also enough to make up entire YouTube channels. So what will be covered here will be nothing but the most condensed and absolutely trustable truth. And I'm gonna let these guys deal with the filthy non-believers. They are the Church of the Husk. This group has a particular fetish for a rather strong type of pharyngitis, some of its most common symptoms being the growth of spikes coming out of your throat, and it completely taking over your brain. Sadly, there is a cure for it, which was developed after they held the most devious rave AIDS party known to man, where 400 people ended up infected. On the trial, the guy that was held responsible of this used dip after saying, "What a party, am I right?" The clowns, also known as the children of the Honkmother, are the crackheads. Oh my bad, they fanheads of Europa. And I actually have a theory about them. You see, these motherfuckers have quite the quirks to them. They are freaks. And according to what they say, this is a blessing of the Honkmother, who bestowed them of these inhuman capabilities. But I think it's the Fen. The Honkmother is the Fen. And all of those quirks really are some good old crackhead strength. It's just the Fen DLC of it. The Coalition was since the beginning of time in Europa the centralized totalitarian government who will spare no means to keep control of your mind. However, after something caused the complete cease of Earth communications 50 years ago, there has been an uprising of rebellious people, of mischievous beasts that ought to be burned. Anyways, leaving aside that, it is said by notable sources that they are fueling many of the problems of the European society. The Jovian Separatists, well, apart from their dwelling places, which are just an appalling sight, in the past they advocated for pacifist democracy and contended with the Coalition on the elections to decide the ruling party of Europa. It was about then when the Coalition did a little bit of trolling on them by baking about 100 of them in a station powered by a nuclear reactor. And that's what I call a skill issue. Nowadays, they have increased their power back again and contend with the Coalition with a slightly different approach. Monsters and combat. This game's enemies are the perfect example of why you should not procreate with your cousins, as you will encounter yourself with the descendants of the Habsburg family and the Blue family from Alabama, who together evolved into whatever the freakish hell are these creatures. Now that you know what you will be dealing with, it's time for you to know how they're gonna be dealing with you. The combat in Barotrauma consists of multiple phases, which I define as attack, defense, and holy shit I'm being eaten. You see, Barotrauma combat is terrifying not because it's hard, but because a little mistake, different from other games, will not just remove a little bit of your health from your health bar, but gently allow a dozen of hungry aliens into your submarine. Like this one time, where after feeling a little bummed, I went to check the situation, stomping with my crippled legs, just to realize we had been hoarded by about 100 very hungry baby hammerheads. contracts. It was then when I realized that no matter the type of contract you are conducting, you are always transporting fucked alien food. And once you have to get out of the submarine, the food is served. When shooting the freaks from the inside, it will be advised to use a proportional amount of force, just to make sure they are not half dead, but well dead, since most of them have means to heal themselves, like eating their own at the very moment they die. Also, corpses do have a hitbox, which, like everything else in this game, may as well be considered a hazard. Crafting and items. When navigating hell, you will need to improve the quality of your gear and supplies. You will is not a fucking option. You see, Barotrauma applies a certain type of natural selection, the kind that gets rid of your incompetent, procrastinating self by inducing several types of PTSD on your ass. An example of this is the drip, and I am talking about this drip, the kind that makes you look like a low-budget aquatic Master Chief, which, unless you wear the correct version of it, you might as well be wearing nothing. The thing is, earth diving suits are a rather comfortable thing, but they don't properly handle the barometric pressure of 600 atmospheres, or about 4 Ford Rangers. Then we have the basic barotraumatic suit, which has an existent, however limited, resistance that won't really take you too deep. Alive, that is. You can upgrade this suit to improve your drip, and also not to die of implosion. The same applies to the submarines. There are 3 tiers of them that you can jack up talking to this brother on any outpost that's not trying to kill you. You can craft almost everything in this game, from tools, electronics and weapons to medicine, among other stuff. And the only other ways to get them is either buying them or doing a long-term lease on them. Talents on your perpetual workers will occasionally unlock new crafting recipes, which can financially help you get by when you are broke, and allow you to improve your submarines further than they were intended to. That's the reason I was able to complete the entire campaign in a tier 2 submarine, and probably the reason I was able to do it all together. Let's just say I don't trust that I can micromanage for all the fuck-ups the retards be doing in a sub like this. Stations or outposts. Outpost can be either habitation, military, research, mining, colony, or hostile outpost. And there's also the no outpost situation, which can be described best as a traumatic experience of its own. I am having a lot of fun. A lot of fun I am having. And even after all that had been said about the outpost, the fact that after being an hour in a metal coffin with only incompetent slugs and freakish horrors to share my time with, I can finally see some somewhat useful, not completely hostile NPC is reconforting at minimum. In every outpost, you can find traders that sell normal stuff, traders that sell less normal stuff, and traders that sell literal human beings. The guy who sells submarines, the guy that improves them, the captain of the outpost that give the contracts, NPCs that give secondary missions, and the guards. Yes, the ultimate enemy of Barotrauma. These bastards are the real deal. Their damage is the same as any other armed human, but their bodies seem to have known the weakness of the flesh, because these motherfuckers don't die. And last and least, there is the inhabitants, or how I like to call them, the snitches, whose sole purpose is to aid the tough quest of the guards in their efforts to impede my ascent to success. Hostile stations, beacons, and hostile stations have always some sort of cryptid creature dwelling in them, but the enemies from these, different from the normal outpost, are not completely broken, so to speak. However, they are completely hostile. The hostile outpost missions are generally pretty straightforward and simple. I personally never had a problem with them. But the beacon stations, these are some brain excruciating missions, I'll tell you that. For instance, if you don't know exactly what to do in them beforehand, the first time you encounter one of these can be pretty mind-boggling. And to be fair, they keep being like that, even when you know what to do. And of course, there is the excitement to find rare loot, but that more often than not is overwhelmingly overcome by the fear of getting eaten and losing it. Also knowing that my autistic ass will most likely come back to get it again. Anyways, hostile stations are simply missions of their own, which have independent loot, aside of the payment that you receive for them. Since once there are no authorities, there is no law, and once there are no international treaties, there are no war crimes, missions, and contracts. In order to sustain our ongoing trip to ascertain death, we ought to work. Good thing is in a video game, because pretty much like crimes, I do not do that in real life. Everything, even the music from this game, is frightening. The ambience, the setting, the monsters trying to eat me alive, the immortal guards. But there is one thing that frightens me the most. That is the missions where I have to leave the submarine, not because they could be any more dangerous than fighting a headbutting prick, but because of the amount of time leaving my body every time something goes slightly wrong. Never to return with the only benefit of having learned what might kill me the next time around. And the reason I have reset every time something goes slightly wrong is because I know that it will be just a downwards spiral that will almost always lead to the same place, a certain death. So I'm just saving myself some time. Because remember, the most frightening thing in this game is not the freakish things lurking outside the submarine, neither the terrible incompetence of my slave subordinates, but the amount of lifetime that you will waste every time you die. For the rest of the contracts, you can get a rather relaxing trip to bomb fishing, smuggling questionable substances, as well as questionable individuals. And at the end, after you have survived the descendants of the Habsburg family and 3 types of space aids, all of the while dealing with a horde of apes with a collective IQ of about half an amoeba, you have yet to complete the pestering, wheel-of-like sequestering quest to dock the submarine. That's right, after that hour-long mission, and while there might still be maggots following you, you have yet to face your worst enemy, your own incompetence. Yes, do you perhaps have fat fingers? Do you ostend of a particular lack of spatial awareness? Well, worry not, because regardless of it, everyone chokes on this one, because you know you are about to be 1 hour down and 1 aneurysm up. But don't worry, you are going to have a great, calm and chill time in the afterlife, that is, because there is none of that here. Fuck, man. No, being honest, there is great satisfaction in completing every mission. Or maybe should I say arriving alive to the next outpost. Yeah, you don't even need to complete the mission to feel that way, honestly. You still need the money though. In the depths, beyond the limits of Europa Bottom, there is a place, darker than the Separatist backstory, lower than the Concord player count, and with enough pressure to Barotrauma your whole last submarine. It is also known to be a good therapeutic treatment for thalassophobic people, since the experience will be so utterly traumatizing that anything you could ever experience after it will look like a joke. It is also a place where European crews will commonly fall to their deaths after getting too many holes in their sub. Curiously enough, there also seems to be an abyss below me every time I'm assigned the foreign life extermination mission, for which reason after putting too many holes on their submarine, you will have to descend to the more hellish part of hell to finish the work. However, the work might be finished by something else. Under a higher barometric pressure than the hold of the ED kit on the class head, creatures tend to become freakishly large. And let's just say the Abyss of Europa is no exception for that. The Abyssals. There are 3 species of alien life in this rather immense void space, and once you find one of them, once you are found by one of them, it is no longer a battle for victory, it is survival of the fittest. Most of the creatures you encounter in this godforsaken place, even though alien, they are foul, not more than what we call TikTokers today.
I'm a fat cow.
But after dipping down, you'll realize there are structures in here. These ruins are a rare site of development in this scriptedly hostile place. They also make perfect spots to practice an alternative type of archaeology, for there are multiple pieces of ancient technology in these, most of which can, and most likely, will kill you. For most of the time, it's not clear what or who made them, but what is clear is that they did not want you there, and maybe them retards did not even want themselves in there, because they are nowhere to be seen. However, it is later revealed that they are related with an intelligent alien species and their ear-crippling god, the Eye. Radiation emanated from the red spot of Jupiter is spraying from the surface of Europa, so civilization is being pushed downwards to the center of the moon. Eventually, you will hear the rumors of the Eye, and about how it is situated beyond the deepest inhabitable region of the ocean, and these always seem to be single members of once existing crews that have returned from whatever is down there, and have become mad yapping about some singing god. Once you reach the location, you find the scientist, who is for some reason resistant to these bad trip-inducing rocks that will fuck the mind right up out of even the freakiest acid enjoyers, and he suggests that the Eye is a sort of portal correlated with the radiation emanated from Jupiter. So of course I took my crew with me, believing everything the man sitting next to the hallucinogen rocks told me, and proceeded to penetrate penetrate the eye. Long story short, it was a portal to Jupiter, where you will find yourself with the intelligent aliens that made the ruins, the ancients, as well as their freakish inventions and their victims. But more importantly, in the furthest room of the structure, there is the singing god. And if God doesn't kill me, hepatitis will, cause I'm drunk in this bitch. Now, for some reason I thought, well, since tobacco reduces my psychedelic trip without any consequences, then a little rum won't hurt too. Then I proceeded to drink the whole bottle, which caused me to almost win my battle with God on the first try. If it wasn't for this maggot constantly getting crushed by the combination of the poor decision making of a rat and the barometric pressure of Jupiter. So if you are going to play this alone, first, why are you gonna do that to yourself? And second, make sure that every one of you serves as one of these. Multiplayer. So after completing the game the wrong way, I decided to hop in some multiplayer lobbies, where in a fraction of the time I had spent in the single player, I experienced a fight to death between crew members to decide who mans the guns, which I won by applying ancient military tactics, a clown extermination, and also completed the story again, which made me understand how different it is to have actual human beings that are somewhat collaborative in your sub. If I had anything to complain about the multiplayer experience, would be the fact that even though I have been making fun of the bots or whining about their working and living conditions, now I kind of understand them. Since when working on a submarine, if you die, there is no payment, and if you survive, there is no payment. So you better get working if you don't want to get beaten. After playing the game, I can say that someone has let the dogs out. The soundtrack fits the setting perfectly, and the combination of mechanics makes for a great experience that you can suffer alone or with someone else. Barotrauma is a traumatic experience that I never thought I needed. The game is challenging in different ways than what the gaming industry has us accustomed to, and requiring the teamwork of creatures that are more often than not very bad at it. This game makes for a chaotic masterpiece where you are always either satisfied, entertained, frustrated, or traumatized. There is no middle point. Overall, I give Barotrauma a suffering, pain, and death out of 10. If you play this, may the blessing of the Jove be with you, because after lobotomizing myself with a flamethrower, I will hopefully not remember any of this. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe if you wanna see more in the future. Peace!